Hello, everybody. This is Carol Maletta. Welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast, where we share information parents need from sources they can trust. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Parenting 411 podcast. I'm your host, Carol Maletta, and today we are excited to have a very special guest, Anna Maria DiDio, an adoptive mother and children's book author whose heartfelt stories open doors to honest conversations about adoption. Her journey from her memoir, Love at the Border, to her LIFE, Life Adventures, children's book series reflects a deep understanding of the complex emotions in the world of adoption. In this episode, we're going to explore the joys and challenges of adoption, understand the nuanced emotions involved, and learn how Anna Maria's experiences have shaped her into a powerful voice for adoptive families. So grab your headphones and join us for an insightful conversation with Anna Maria DiDio. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
This is such an important topic. I can't wait for our listeners to really hear your perspective. So why don't we just start off with you sharing a bit about your personal journey that led to the adoption for your family?
Yeah, well, yes, that's a great place to start. And as for many adoptive families, our journey started with infertility. So I had been plagued with infertility issues for many years, and it was known when we were married, and those medical interventions continued and without much success. So we dove into the world of adoption, and many years ago, that was calling every listing in the phone book and talking to folks. And but to our surprise, I did get pregnant. So we had a beautiful baby girl.
Mm-hmm.
But all told, that was a 10-year effort. If I would just, when I went back one time to actually count the years, I was surprised. So, but then adding to our family, our daughter started to grow, and we thought, well, we wanted a sibling, and there was just no medically, we knew our miracle was finished at that point. So we dove into the world of adoption again. But we had a lot of challenges and hurdles. One of the agencies that we were with closed, and things were very, it was just very difficult to gain traction with an agency. And by that point, our daughter had been almost like 5, 6, 7 years old. So we thought the time for an infant had passed us by. So just by happenstance, I saw an article in the local newspaper that these children from Mexico that lived in orphanages in and around Mexico City were visiting a church as part of a summer camp experience. And the bottom of the article said, and these children are available for adoption. So they were the age of my daughter, and we thought, wouldn't it be great to have a girl, her age. And so we began the process, and that actually took another 2 years, but we were eventually successful adopting a almost 7-year-old girl from an orphanage in Mexico.
And so really it was just your hearing about these children that needed a home that kind of led you into the realm of transcultural adoption.
Yes.
Right. Yes. And so your memoir, Love at the Border, kind of kickstarted your writing journey. So what about your story made you want to share it with everybody else?
Well, it was such a unique experience. There was no one that I had ever met or known that had traveled to Mexico to adopt a child. We had friends that had traveled to China and some Russia, and everything about the journey was so unique and different. And we actually made 3 trips. So we had a lot of experience with different agencies, the orphanage, the caregivers, and meeting our daughter first initially, a year before she actually came to live with us. So all of that, I started to keep a journal, and it just after many years and continuing to journal our experience, it was only until I retired that I thought, you know what, I am going to write this into a book and share my experience, and perhaps talk to couples that are, or people that are thinking of adoption. And there are a lot of elements to explore.
Mm-hmm. And when you talk about your journey being unique and different, do you mean unique and different from, say, your friends who adopted children from Russia and the other places that you mentioned? Or are you thinking unique and different from, say, adopting a child from here in the United States?
Well, both of those things actually, but another thing to consider though is that she was almost 7 years old.
Okay.
So when, every adoption, and this is something that we'll talk about in a moment when I refer to my children's books, but every adoption begins with the trauma of separation and loss.
Mm-hmm.
So here she was, almost 7 years old, and living in Mexico. That's all she ever knew. And then one day she was living in suburban Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
So that in and of itself was just very traumatic for her. And so the experience, not only culturally, but experientially, but just experiencing this with an older child, and then a child, our biological child, had been an only child for all those years.
Right.
So there was that big transition. So we had a lot of things to navigate as she settled into our home. And I started to keep track of that and put it together for the memoir.
We'll be right back after this. If you're looking to reach a massive audience of parents and caregivers, then look no further than ProPix by the Parenting 411, the ultimate marketing program designed to skyrocket your brand to new heights. With ProPix, we've created 3 incredible packages to suit your marketing needs and budget. So let's take a look. First up is our social starter package. You'll receive a stunning graphic promo piece, plus we'll also feature your brand on the Parenting 411 Instagram page. It's the perfect way to make a memorable first impression and get parents buzzing about your business. Now, if you're ready to level up, our Parenting Pro package is where it's at. You'll enjoy all the benefits of the social starter package, plus more awesome benefits, including exposure on the Parenting 411 podcast, which reaches parents in more than 22 countries each week. But wait, there's more. For those seeking the pinnacle of marketing power, our Elite Exposure package is the way to go. You'll get even more exposure across our platform, including thousands of followers and connections on LinkedIn. Get ready to dominate the airwaves and establish yourself as the go-to resource for families everywhere. Take advantage of ProPix by the Parenting 411 today and unlock unparalleled marketing opportunities for your business. But I should tell you that prices are set to increase on November 1st, so act now. ProPix by the Parenting 411 is your passport to the hearts and minds of parents. Visit ProPixbyP411.com. Join us today and watch the magic happen. And we're back with the Parenting 411. And you mentioned something very important. And of course, this probably arises more frequently and more extensively with children who are older. But that, as happy as they might be to finally have parents that that will take them into their home and love them, and that stability that all of us on the outside looking in are seeing for that child, there is some event, some trauma, like you said, that leads to it. So we can't just assume that they just walk in, hey, this is my new room, this is my new sibling in your case, and this is just great,
Just
as though
peachy.
they're going to forget everything
Yes.
Even if it was a troubling past, like they're going to forget all the relatives they knew or the parents they knew or whatever,
Mhm.
and it's just going to be easy. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, you hit that nail right on the head. People used to say to us all the time, "She's so lucky. She's so lucky to be in your family, end up with a wonderful family like you." And for years, I bought into that as well.
Hmm.
But it was obvious when she first arrived that she was unhappy. I mean, she did cry for months, but that tapered off. But I saw other behaviors continue that were evidence of the trauma that she had experienced. So
Hmm.
when I started to delve into the primal wound, which is the term referenced by the adopted child being um, placed for adoption and separated from the biological mother,
Hmm.
she had trauma 2 times over, as you just mentioned, being separated from everything she
Hmm.
loved and knew. And
Hmm.
that included, you name it, tastes and smells and food and all of her friends at the shelter and her caregiver. She had grown very close to a caregiver. So it was just so many things at once hitting her.
Hmm.
And that transition, that trauma recovery took many, many years. And we obviously worked with a therapist
Hmm.
and tried to give her, room and space. And but you are so right. Often I say to folks, they say, "Oh, but you again, such a loving family." But
Hmm.
that doesn't erase all of that pain of
Hmm.
the family she never knew and the family that she did know as a small child. So
Hmm. Hmm.
it was a
Hmm.
process.
hmm Are there any other common misconceptions or just things that we don't understand about adoption and how
Mhm.
adoptive children feel about the process?
Well, it's referred to as the myth of adoption.
Hmm.
And I often say that, oh, that's perpetuated by the entertainment world, the Disneys of the world, and all these, orphan stories that just a
Hmm.
shiny new place to live is all that's needed. And that's really not the issue at all. So it's love doesn't really solve everything. Again, a loving family just can't take away all of that trauma.
Hmm.
And what we did was try to maintain those connections to
Okay.
Mexico. Within a few months, she had lost her language. So imagine how,
Wow.
painful that was. Initially, when she came, she would be yelling in Spanish that she did not want to learn English.
Hmm.
But of course, living with a family that only spoke English, she picked it up. Children are so resilient. She picked it up very quickly, but there was that loss there, and evidence by as she grew older, I could see that that piece of her was missing when she started to in middle school. Spanish lessons were offered, or Spanish
Hmm.
class started, and I could see that spark. And her accent, was just beautiful and came back to her in kind of like a
Oh,
flood. It was just amazing.
okay.
And she uh, began to connect Facebook with friends and those at the shelter from years ago. And
Oh,
so
wow. Okay.
after years and then going to college and majoring in Spanish, she's now, actually working. She's 28 now and working in the Hispanic community. So, I saw that difference when she reclaimed that knowledge, when she reclaimed that language
It's
that was
beautiful.
part of her that was missing, and it was very, very important.
Wow. That's something to think about because there are a lot of now transcultural adoptions
Mhm.
happening, and that's interesting. There definitely has to be that effort to keep them connected with their culture. Even if hopefully maybe even some family members or former caregivers, as you said, but if for some reason that's not possible, connection with their origin culture, because
Mhm.
that's so much of who they are. So
Exactly.
that's wonderful. How what are some other things that parents can do to just to better understand the process and support their children with their emotions and recognizing the
Mhm.
trauma and the grief?
Well, first of all, it depends on what type of adoption that the family is deciding to proceed with, and that's either an older child, perhaps a foster child, perhaps a child from another country as older or as a baby. So there are all those variations. There's a saying that every adoption is unique, and that's also true. I mean, every family setting's unique, whether
Mhm.
there are siblings, where they live, and all those kind of things. So, but I found that there are consistencies that I think parents or adults can pursue in preparation for this amazing task. And that's
Mhm.
first and foremost, really network and talk to other adoptive families and
Okay.
or read about them. I mean, there's so many stories out there now. Years ago, that was not the case. And we in our community, we knew some folks and
Mhm.
I, read some books even as part of the agencies that we had signed with. There were some training classes, so we took those very seriously and did book reports. But really
Mhm.
networking with other families that are not only beginning the process, but have integrated, perhaps adopted children into their families. Just
Mhm.
seeing what their experience is, I think, is so valuable.
Mhm.
And next, I recommend the research. It
Mhm.
wasn't until months and months and years had gone by when I realized that my daughter's behaviors were the result of these traumas that she had experienced.
Mhm.
Being secretive or not being truthful with us, or not cooperating at school. And it was all part of her um, of her trauma, of her transition, and
Mhm.
just getting used to a whole family. Again, it wasn't like we were screaming and yelling and everything was miserable. There were moments of such wonderful, family
Mhm.
love and vacations, and as I said, experiences. But as I said before, just that pain doesn't go away, and it always should be in top of mind kind of thing.
Okay. Okay.
So anyway, those are some of the things that parents can do to prepare.
Mhm. Mhm. And if there is a cultural difference, what are some things that adoptive families can do to honor and integrate their child's cultural background into the new family
Mhm.
life?
Well, I can share a little bit about what we did. We stayed in touch with the caregivers for years,
Okay.
and my daughter is still in touch with them.
Mhm.
Um, Not only through social media, but we've visited Mexico many times. She did a study abroad semester in Mexico and visited
Mhm.
the shelter and the caregivers. And I love to cook. She loves to cook. So we've, create many Mexican meals together.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
our level of spiciness varies greatly, but she is that was always encouraged in our family, just to
Mhm.
to celebrate that and
Mhm.
work that into our family mix.
Mm. Mhm. Now, I know that you've written the the Life
Yes.
Adventures children's book series. So let's talk about that because I can imagine that that really is helpful to not only children who have been adopted, but their siblings and just really the
Right.
family alike. So let's talk about that. It's LIFE. What does that stand for?
Love inspires families everywhere.
Okay.
So it's not only some folks have said, well, my child is not adopted internationally, but the issues around adoption are universal. Even
Hmm.
every adoption is unique, but
Hmm.
the issue of trauma and integration into family life, recognizing and celebrating biology and identity are all part of the messages that I wanted to convey and are essential for an adopted child. So the first book, called Many People to Love, is really all of these books were inspired by our actual family experience. So the first book is called Many People to Love, and it's the story of a young girl from Colombia, not from Mexico, because my daughter would kill me if I wrote any more about her. So it's not really about her, but and just the transition of what it means to suddenly find an older child finds herself in a home, and what that means with another sibling. Then the second book is called How I Wonder Where You Are. And it's about a child thinking about her biological roots. Again, even though there's a loving family, there are still questions, and we certainly were on the receiving end of those questions many times at a restaurant, at a clothing store, and people would comment that my daughter didn't look like me, and are those two really sisters? They don't look like each other. And so, or my other daughter looks like me. And so this is natural. This is certainly expected that the adopted child will be asking, who do I look like? Where did I come from? What is my story? What is my adoption story? What is my biological story? And I think many families very naturally shy away from these types of questions because they can be threatening. They can be, does it mean if I raise these things, will I open the door that I can't close and my child won't love me anymore? But these are things that really, the point of my books, because I think these are things that need to be dealt with and discussed to address that trauma and address the peace of mind that needs to happen for all adopted children, so they feel secure in their own identity. And then the final story is called Carla the Conqueror. And it was a challenge, my daughter had reading English aloud. So it's the support that schools provide very wonderfully, that gave her confidence to read in front of the classroom, which initially she did not do. And the Carla experiences such fright and anxiety. She crawls underneath the teacher's desk. That actually happened to my daughter, and she had detention for that. But I'm not sure, that was a little bit extreme. But anyway, these are situations, real life situations. I talk about triggers, like in school, putting together a family tree, which seems like a very nice assignment but for an adopted child, a family tree represents an illustration of, folks that I'm not connected to, how am I connected to? So there are things that we don't think much about, but are very, need to be addressed with adopted children in mind.
I like this series. So it sounds like you really also help parents become aware of things that maybe they take for granted, but need some special consideration when you have children who are adopted. I think that's great. And then also just, it's something that, reading that together, again, I just feel like it has an impact on the whole family understanding better from that child's perspective, especially their children's books, and children don't have the vocabulary, they don't have the context and the nuances and all of that to say, this is how the world looks to me. This is what I'm experiencing.
Exactly. So you're bringing up a really interesting point, because I'm recommending that these books be read and discussed even before the child fully has that understanding, that complete understanding. And in that way, that sense of self, that confidence, my place in the family as an adopted child is just as solid as perhaps my biological siblings or whatever. And that story is repeated over and over and accepted and loved. And that's really the point of the books, to normalize these questions and not threaten or compromise or question the adoptive parents' love, because it's there, but there's a lot of hesitancy and sometimes we're not sure where to go with that. But it's a way to get these feelings out in the open.
We'll be right back after this. Are you a parent looking to unlock your potential in raising confident, capable, and courageous children? Well, look no further. Join us at the upcoming Parent and Purpose Summit Back to School Edition, where parenting experts from around the world will come together to share their wisdom and insights. I'm Carol Maletta, founder of the Parenting 411. This summit is your opportunity to gain essential skills and tools to become the parent you've always aspired to be. Over 5 incredible days, we'll dive deep into topics like positive discipline, effective communication, mental health, self-care, school readiness, and more. An attendee from our last summit told us, "This summit changed my parenting game. I feel more confident and connected with my children than ever before." So secure your seat at the Parent and Purpose Summit today. Visit parentandpurposesummit2023.com. That's parentandpurposesummit2023.com. And click the registration button to join us on this transformative journey. The Parent and Purpose Summit, where intentional parenting begins. And we're back with the Parenting 411. Now, based on your experience and, of course, the expertise as you've just moved forward, I mean, as you said, your daughter is 28, so I guess this is, 21 years that
Right.
that she's been with you, been, part of your family. Um, what kind of advice would you have for those that are they're right now thinking about adoption? Are there any key points that
Mhm,
you just want
mhm.
them to think about and be prepared for?
Well, really looking into the situation that you're thinking about, whether again, that's an older child or an infant,
Mhm.
talking to families from a similar experience. If you're diving into an international situation, it's very important to be fully aware of the laws and requirements. Even for Mexico, I know the laws there have changed drastically since we did this, 20 some years ago. So international adoption has had its challenges. And I know just the numbers of international adoptees have decreased over the years.
Oh.
And there are more currently in the US, more foster to adopt situations. But
Mm.
these same principles still apply, even
Mhm.
even in a family to family adoption. That connection is so important, and the recognition of what biology is there is important. So
Mhm.
all of these things still play a big part in a blended family that can thrive.
Right, right. So, what are your goals for the future, both as an author as well as an advocate for adoptive families?
Well, I'm starting to write a little bit more about these topics and
Mm.
circulating them to a wider audience, not just a children's book. So
Mhm.
I've been writing on Medium, and
Okay.
I have my own Medium page, and I've also written for some other publications talking about adoptee anger, and
Hmm.
um, there is a lot of adoptee anger out there about uh, these issues that I'm talking about, that
Mhm.
the acknowledgement of their biology has not been recognized,
Mhm.
and they're feeling, well, sometimes it's referred to as an adoption fog, or they're feeling
Mhm.
not recognized. So trying to bring these subjects to the forefront is still my goal. I'm writing a middle grade book, perhaps another children's book and a middle grade book, plus the
Mhm.
articles. So that's really what I'm doing as an author, and
Mhm.
that's taking up, and plus promoting the books that I've already written. So that's what's in the immediate future.
Oh, okay. And is there anything else any other burning message you have that we haven't
Well,
covered?
one additional thing I would say is that I always tried to provide a space for my daughter to speak to someone that was not me, since I didn't think I had all the answers.
Mm.
And as she grew, we initially we relied on a therapist that was recommended to us, that was very familiar with family issues around adoption. But
Mhm.
as she grew and her problems and challenges changed, we would, we sought the guidance of other folks. So just be open.
Mm-hmm.
I think families should be open to, therapy, not as there's something wrong with your family and you need to fix it, but
Mm-hmm.
as someone who can listen to your child apart from you and move the family to a better space. And we participated in therapy as a family, and my daughter did individually, and I think it really was a benefit to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm glad you mentioned that. So, how can we follow your work? Social media, your website?
Well, my website is amddio.com. So my name, amdidio.com. So my books are there. There's links to my social media and also my Medium page. So that's really the best way to stay connected. The books are available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Wonderful. Well, I thank you so much for spending time with me today. I think this is very valuable information because more and more you're hearing about uh, people wanting to expand their families, and adoption has been a viable option for many years. And you really kind of take some of the mystery, some of the fear away in this conversation, but I certainly advise people to visit Anna Maria's website and check out her books. I think that they will be
Thank
a
you.
tremendous resource for you and your families. And I just like to bring people like Anna Maria to you all because she has such valuable information. I like to make sure that you hear from people that have lived experience, have expertise to help you with the different challenges and that are in your life. And if you are listening as well and you serve families and you want to get your message out, your products, your services out to families, I invite you to consider the Pro Picks by the Parenting 411 program. That's where we showcase companies and clinicians and just experts who just ultimately want to enrich the lives of children and families. So you can head over to propix by p411.com. That's propix by p411.com and see which option works best for you and your business, because ultimately, here at the Parenting 411, it's my mission to deliver information parents need from sources they can trust, and that's you all. So as always, I appreciate you listening today. Please like, share, and subscribe this episode. You can also head on over to YouTube as well. The episode will be there as well. But just continue to follow the Parenting 411 on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and you'll know when this episode comes out and is available for you to download and share with your family and friends. And always remember that it's never too late to be the parent you want to be. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I can't wait to talk to you again next time.